My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave DeBow. And have you ever wondered how one couple turned a single family home into a real estate empire? Well, today, my guest, Fraser Nybo from Nybo Estates, shares his journey from single family rentals to flipping houses and multi-family apartment buildings. Fraser, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me, Bryce. I appreciate coming on the show and look forward to this.
So yeah, I mean, the big thing always is, people always want to hear the origin story. So can you walk us through your journey from that first single family to owning multiple multifamily apartment blocks?
Yeah, definitely. Start way back. I grew up on a farm in Southwest Saskatchewan, and then went to the oil field after high school, and then wanted to be home a little bit more. So I did I think 3 years out there. And then came back and started working in construction and stuff like that. And then I got in at a potash mine, and I came home to the apartment that I was renting one day. Me and my brother, and we both grew up with lots of room on the farm, right? And we were complaining about the small apartment. And I was actually going to buy a dirt bike. I had like a line of credit or something that I'm surprised the bank gave me at the time. And yeah, basically decided that I should go try to get a loan, see how this goes. So I went to a mortgage broker, got a loan, got a house, and then spent the next 2 years or year and a bit, I guess, renovating the basement suite, just paycheck to paycheck, just any extra money that I had. I was 23 years old, and just finally rented it out. Saw the power of like rental income. I wanted to say passive income, but you know how it's not exactly passive, but we'll call it
passive,
the taste of passive income. And I just tried to figure out how to scale it. I saw lots of people at that time. That would have been around 2012 or 2012, 2013. Lots of people were selling houses for fairly large profits, but then they'd have to rebuy and spend the money that they made to get into their new house. So I remember thinking, how can I like basically take advantage of this? So try to buy two houses. Bank will let me do that. Okay, let's do that. So then we basically house hacked. A couple of years later, met my girlfriend, now wife at that time. And then we bought a house together, moved into that one. And then just slowly kept buying houses. And then we got in 2018, I think it was, we got into flipping houses. We did some pretty crazy flips, 100-year-old houses. We did it was over 3,000 square feet, I think, our largest house, like on all levels. Full guts, big renovation budgets. At the time, renovation budgets are probably double that now. And then basically we flipped for a few years. We flipped quite a few houses, quite a bit of time. We were starting to build that or scale that part of the business and run two businesses parallel, basically an active company flipping houses and then the passive real estate investment side of the business. And then it just got to be so much. So we decided, basically me and my wife, we sat down one day, drew a line down a whiteboard, and told this story quite a bit. And basically everything on the left side of the line is getting us to where we want to go. Everything on the right side of the line is not getting us to where we want to go. So we wrote down everything. We had Airbnb, like we owned property in Montreal. We owned a condo out there. We were Airbnb, all the Airbnbs in Saskatoon, everything that was taking our focus away went on the one side of the whiteboard. And then, we just started selling off properties. And then we focused really on the multifamily side of things, really dialed back the flips. We still would flip, but we don't really. If something fell into my lap, I would take it. But right now, we're just in acquisition mode on the multifamily apartment blocks. I see a huge void there. There's a huge gap in the market, essentially, and like to really simplify it, it's just basically people can't build them now for what we can buy them for per door. So there's a huge gap there.
Where are you mostly buying them?
In Saskatoon solely right now. Just focus. Don't diversify too much.
Well, and then that's the thing about Saskatchewan as a whole too, is there's a shortage, but like you're saying, you look at the construction cost, and the MLI Select program does help. People are
Definitely.
able to start buying stuff and fixing old stuff. But when you look at it, if you just said, "Oh, no grants, no funding, just I'm gonna get some cash and do something," you do the calculation, you look at the paper, you're like, this does not add up. Like it's not an investment. You look at building new, it's not an investment without help. So you got to look at the older stuff. And how old are you talking about when you look at your multifamily acquisitions? Are we talking
Our
1910 or
No, our oldest multifamily is in 1968, I believe, and then we have some
yeah, cinder
78.
block construction,
Yeah,
something like that?
wood
Yeah.
frame. We have a couple concrete ones.
Yeah, nice. So when you look at you kind of said, "Oh, passive income, haha," right? That's that's the joke
Yeah,
that people. I guess that's a joke that gets played on the new people looking for passive income because
yeah,
anything that generates money needs a money manager. You look at the most wealthy people, and it's not like, "Oh, I made it. Now everything's working on its own." No, they just hire someone to make it passive and deal with one person instead of 10.
exactly.
So when you look at that, how do you balance the family life, the travel, growing your real estate business, especially with the wife's career as a flight attendant?
That's a very, very good question. Yeah, I don't know. Lots of like adapting, I guess you could say. It's just like we went from having all this free time. And what I even still struggle with now is I used to be able to work late at night. I would work till like 2 in the morning, running out like
Hmm.
CRM
Hmm.
programs and not working on like deal flow and workflow. And I had Podio, like pulling in properties through all these
Yeah.
systems. And I love designing that stuff. I love data. But now, and even like this is, like I said, this is something I still struggle with. By supper time, I'm exhausted on the weekends. Like it's just we have three young children, three kids under
Mm.
5. And yeah, so it's just constantly changing, having a good partner. Like Vanessa carries a lot of the weight when I need her to, and I carry a lot of the weight when she needs me to. Just communicating all the really basic stuff actually, but I think a lot of people, including ourselves, forget to do that sometimes. So, um, but yeah, then focusing the business is another big aspect of that because we were flipping houses. Like
Hmm.
Vanessa was out of the hospital 2 days after a C-section. 2 days after she came out, we took possession of it. That was that 3,000 square foot flip. Uh, like full gut job. It was a huge house. She's in there like doing flooring and not doing flooring, but like picking out. She has an interior design company also. So she's like
Mm.
flooring selections just so nothing gets held up. Like it was crazy. So then basically we figured something has to give. And then I don't know. I've been watching multifamily for a long time and we were involved in multifamily shortly after my daughter was born. We bought our first apartment block. And yeah, you just see the power of it, the power of compound essentially. Boils down to how the banks finance it, to
Hmm.
how they
Well, it's
look at
like a
the lending.
completely different asset class when it comes to financing it, the broker game, like
No
actually
caps
getting
on how many
someone
units
to,
you can build
yeah.
or buy.
And when you look at the multifamily space, it's like you could have bought a bunch of single families in Saskatoon if you really were so interested, but it wouldn't align. I always say to people like real estate's a tool. You have to know what
Yeah,
you're building. You don't just grab a hammer and start trying to drill a hole
yeah,
with it, like, oh, let's just bash a hole through with a hammer. No, you pick the right tool to get the result of what
exactly.
the life you're trying to construct. So you pick multifamily for the collapsing of management, the collapsing of time as you realize time was more valuable necessarily than doing another 3,800 square foot full gut. Like
Yeah,
you're not ultimately, I'm sure you made something on that. Usually when you go big, you have the opportunity to win big or, possibly lose big. But with the multifamily thing, you're now thinking, I guess, about the future and the kids and um,
exactly.
that sort of thing. Now, you mentioned um, purchasing properties in strategic locations, gathering properties for land assembly. So could you elaborate a little bit on the strategy and the selection of these locations?
Yeah, so this is actually a really fun one and fairly recent. We have our first little land assembly, I guess, going on right now, and it's 3 buildings out of 5 buildings on a block. So we own 60% of a pretty like desirable block, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
There's a new transit system coming on. They call it the bus rapid transit in Saskatoon. I don't know exactly
Yeah,
what's on that.
we have one here in Winnipeg. Yeah, BRLT or some bus
Yeah,
rapid transit lane or something.
yeah.
It's okay. Yeah, it works. It
And
works.
it's like as far as Saskatoon going, it's not like the bigger cities, right? Like it's still trying to grow into that from my perspective. It's not even like
Yeah.
close to
Well, it's
Calgary.
good that they started earlier because Winnipeg waited too long and then had to like do a lot of land reclamation and
Yeah.
some of the lanes, like they were lucky that the rail yard gave up a lot of their property.
Wow.
So they were able to like parallel one of the main train lines down the core of the city because if you wait too long, you can't actually build a functional rapid transit. So it's probably better that they start sooner. So
Yeah.
you're able, and I remember when they announced the development that part of it was like these kind of worthless pieces of land on both sides are suddenly now rapid transit adjacent. So they built all these condos by the university, and you can live there and get on it and go right downtown. So have they started breaking ground on
No, they
the ground?
haven't. And like I said, that's one of
Early adopter.
yeah, that's one of the like Don Campbell's main rules is right. Don't buy until the shovels are in the ground or some
Yeah, to
variation of
some
that,
degree, yeah.
right? But this one, I guess, started off as not even an accident. Like we bought the first property.
Hmm.
The property manager came to me with the one next door. She managed that one. And then or the lady who was managing it, I guess, brought it to me. So we bought it, worked out a deal. And then this third one, we happened to buy it. Now the decision is a little bit more, we paid a little bit more than what I would have liked to. It's still a good deal as far as like the market in Saskatoon is concerned. But it's like that definitely played into the decision a little bit more, whether
Hmm.
or not we buy that one for that price in the condition it was in, I guess is a good way to put it. So, but I think there's value there. We've done like land value appraisals and all that stuff.
Any holdouts?
Oh, and the other two.
Yeah.
Oh, I know the one guy who does it, and I was bugging him a little while ago, who owns the one on the one side of the street, and then an old elder lady who owns the one on the other side of us. So we're like sandwiched in between the two, which isn't a big deal. But
Yeah.
so I am trying to buy those ones too, but we'll see how that goes. But even if we don't get them, like there's still opportunity. Like their little 8 unit, it's probably a lot like Winnipeg. They didn't take advantage of all the full lot size. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of land and these little 8 unit buildings sitting on them.
Yeah. So you can, I talked to a guy, I think he's out in maybe in Quebec or maybe like east of Ottawa, somewhere near the border. And he said, don't don't leave a gap. He says no gap land amalgamations because they bought up like a good 70% of a block one at a time, and then there was just this holdout that eventually they had to sell the land assembly in two pieces because they had like this
Oh,
piece and
oh,
that piece, but there's this holdout. He's just like, nope, nope, nope.
yeah,
And so his advice was like always step out, never step over. Because
yeah,
then you end up with like a gap in your land project. So yeah, very, very cool. And I mean, if they don't build the rapid transit, you could always just put it together and sell it. I'm sure it'll be worth
yeah.
something someday.
Well, and that's the thing. So then the primary reason for purchasing it is it was a good buy. Like I bought two of them super cheap, and they like it was like 200,000, 250, I think, in equity almost on.
Mm,
That's from appraisal value, so realistic sale price probably varies a little bit lower than what appraisal is, but like still they were good buys. So we bought them primary. The primary reason was just for the cash flow. They're good buys. The second one, same thing, and then the third one,
hmm.
it's still they all cash flow nice. Like they're good long-term holds. And like honestly, we probably won't even ever like even if we couldn't develop it, we would just keep them.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
our
anything
horizon is
next to the
25,
rapid
35
transit,
years.
yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be fine.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What are some challenges you faced while building your real estate, especially transitioning from flipping, which is, a lot smaller of a horizon, to focusing on apartment buildings, which in some cases, in some circles, have no horizon. There's like, I'm never selling. I'm gonna put these in a trust. I'm gonna hand them down
Exactly.
to my kids, kids, kids. So tell me any sort of challenges that you can tip your hat to the people thinking, oh, I'm done flipping, I'm going to do apartments.
Yeah,
What should they look out for?
it just grows over time. Like we had single family rentals in our primary, like in our personal name. We had
Mm-hmm.
flips in a corporation, a different corporation, and then we
Mm-hmm.
had the apartments growing in another corporation. So we had a ton of stuff going on, and then yeah, basically it was just trying to simplify it, like I mentioned, and that was a tough part, shifting gears. It's tough from an ego standpoint. If you just like, you always have to keep your ego in check.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, because selling off all our properties, getting out of the flips, like everybody, it's good social media on like with flips,
Yeah,
but
because there's lots of like before and afters and lots of
exactly,
action.
exactly. But yeah, so basically we had to shift gears and we had to go down like fairly low, like even property numbers, cash flow numbers. We had to take a pretty big lull there for quite a while, but now it's paid off. Like we're back up to and past where we were before in terms of cash flow, property numbers, all that stuff. So it's tough to shift gears. There's a lot of things to think about, but yeah, just try to plan it out as much as possible. Don't overdo your corporations. Don't set up the whole family trust setup right away. We went big
Mm-hmm.
right off the bat, and like it was staggering, the legal costs and the accounting costs per corporation.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just start out, if you are going to go the corporation route or you're looking for a little bit of like dislocation from from your personal
Mm-hmm.
self, do go the corporate route, but don't go open up 3 or 5 corporations right off the bat. Open one, make sure you have good cash flow. Open number two, make sure you have good cash flow on that, and just keep stacking like that. Don't go too big too fast.
Mm-hmm. So when you look at um the capital side of things, like funding a flip, maybe a few 100,000. Funding a multifamily building usually starts reaching towards like the seven-figure capital. So when you look at that, what advice would you have to people looking to kind of do the same?
Just talk about it. Talk about it with your friends, your family, and just like whoever wants to listen. Basically, talk about like. If you're passionate about it, people want to hear about it. Uh,
Mm,
that's what we found. Like uh, raising flips, we would raise a down payment and then we would just raise cash for the whole flip, like purchase price and renovation costs. And then we got into apartment buildings and then we raised the down payment for the apartment buildings. And now we just do cash deals. What we do is we purchase in cash, optimize the building, and then refinance it. We're doing CMHC MLI select loans, actually, like you mentioned, at 85% loan to value right now. But there's some good programs out there, and yeah.
and so how do you manage, what is it like to be an investor in your deal? Like what sort of transparency would someone like myself see as far as like where's my money, what's going on, where's the project at? Because some of these buildings can take, 24 months to stabilize. So
Yeah.
how do you keep me in the loop about my money, potentially somebody else's money? But
Lots
we'll
of
just
video
pretend I'm
calls.
in the deal. Fraser, where's my money? What's going on?
Yeah, lots of video calls on updates on like big renovations on the property, full
Hmm.
access to bank accounts, and then with our bank we work with BMO, and then
Hmm.
you can basically set people up in that account and give them access. So we pick what accounts that they have, like whatever properties they're involved in. They can
Hmm.
log in, they can see exactly what the balance is, exactly where it is. If they have any questions, we do monthly reporting. So yeah, full transparency. That's anything they want. If it's not available to them, we'll make it available to them. So
So
it's good peace of mind.
with the wife and yourself working here and there, are you the primary on the real estate thing? Like that's your full-time thing, or do you also work a job, like a T4 job
Yeah, like I'm employed at a potash mine. It's still the same one actually.
still? Yeah.
Been there like 15 years, but um, on my way out, I guess. And then I've been taking the parental leaves since we've been having kids,
Just
taking advantage.
stacking them up.
Yeah,
Take the
basically. And it's a big corporation, so I don't think they mind too much. There's people chomping at the bit to run the machines, or take my
yeah,
position.
press the button, dig some
Yeah,
potash. I
exactly.
remember Saskatoon in 2000 and must have been like 2005 or 2007. And then suddenly potash was the thing. And then all of a sudden left, like on the south side of the highway, it's just like, looks like Calgary. It's just new houses, new box houses all the way to the left. And then on the right is all the old Saskatoon towards the bridge and ABC Street and all that. But it was crazy how like some money hit and all of a sudden there's like new freeways
Yeah.
and, like exit ramps to these, box style housing, and just goes to show that a little bit of industry can really change the face of people got to live somewhere. So now they're building schools and they're
Yeah.
building more houses. And, um, as far as where do you see, um, the future of the real estate business and, like, are you trying to get the kids involved in that? How
Oh
do you
yeah.
plan to instill those values of money and entrepreneurship into them?
So we're starting to basically sit down with our kids and talk about money, and they're involved already. Like my little girl at 5 years old, like she'll drive around and go through the properties with me. Like we do have we have in-house management right now, so we have a few
Hmm.
employees. Um, so I don't have to go do the day to day. I don't know all the tenants anymore. I know who they
Hmm.
are and I see their names and stuff on like the paperwork and whatnot.
Hmm.
But um, yeah, basically we try to get them involved as much as possible. I want those kids to work hard and know the value of money, and just basically kind of how I grew up. And then you have to work for money, and we'll try to set them up as much as possible, but I don't want to set them up too much either. So,
Yeah,
uh,
let them be a kid a bit too, but
yeah,
I
yeah,
like to drag
exactly.
my kid or I drag my son around to properties. Like, this place is so damaged. He'll say
Yeah,
damaged. Look at
it's
how
funny.
damaged it is. I'm like, yeah, that's how they come, man.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But yeah, it's good. And then just talking about, I don't know, the market. Like she's still a little bit young to learn about like the market happenings in Saskatoon, why it's a good market and this and that. But she sees us when we travel, we're always looking at real estate, or we're in Vancouver or something, we'll pop into an open house, or I'll be like searching for like multifamily apartment buildings at like 500,000 a door. Everybody knows that
Hmm.
market's insane. Um,
It's all perspective, right? That
true.
that might look like a deal to someone else, but when you look at it, I'm in Winnipeg here, and you can still buy a cash flowing property, unlike a lot of places in Canada.
It's like Saskatoon,
Um,
exactly.
Yeah, Saskatoon, Regina to some degree, but Regina's properties have foundation problems because it's
Yeah.
a bit of a, I guess it's described as a swamp.
Yeah, you had Jancy on here, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
think back in the day, but I used to work pretty closely with Jancy back in the day, so
that's
she'd always
awesome.
be like, "Yeah, every foundation's braced in Regina," and it's
Yeah,
like status quo, and you're like, man, I wouldn't like as soon as I see a crack or a braced foundation in Winnipeg, I'm like, nah, like there's better houses. But if it's status quo, then it just goes to show that, just like the $500,000 a door, a braced foundation in Regina makes sense, just like 500,000 a door out in Vancouver makes sense. So,
yeah. And that's
um,
interesting that you say perspective too, because that's a huge part of the market is, we're seeing a lot of people from either coast come into the prairie markets. You're probably seeing it also. And we see
a
stuff
bit,
in
people
MLS
seem
that
to jump right over Manitoba. That's like, it's
that's
because
good though.
we do have decent RTB, but I think it has something to do with um, economic prosperity when you
Yeah.
rank it against Alberta and Saskatchewan. Um, I don't know that it's beating Saskatchewan right now. I think it's probably just like, you know,
I know your
every.
land prices are higher than
Oh
Saskatchewan.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we've had a bit of inflation. We have a ton of immigration, but I think investors are looking for a more of a multiplier on
Yeah.
the future. And someone in Saskatoon could say, well, yeah, it's multiplying. In Alberta, they're like, yeah, it's multiplying. In Manitoba, they're like, steady as she goes.
Yeah,
It's
which
gonna
is
be the same
good.
thing next year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
kind of
not boring,
frustrating when you
but
watch all the other markets sometimes, but
well, that's the Ontario and the BC investor. They're not excited about, no one's excited about owning a car wash. It's like, how's business? The same as last year, same
yeah.
car, same thing. Was it, they want to hear that it's like doubling because they're used to that Ontario, BC inflation. So they're like, is it doubling? Is it going to be worth twice what it is this year? No, it's
I think
Winnipeg.
there's already a lot of changes happening on either
It's going to
side.
be worth roughly the same, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less. If you make it nice, it'll be worth more. If you let it fall apart, it'll be worth less. So,
Yeah, and that's always interesting too, just the whole perspective part of it. It's like we'll see apartment blocks listed 130, 140 a door, 180 a door sometimes. And
Mhm.
we, like the local people, we just think we all talk and we're like, that is insane. And then like a week later, it's snapped up by somebody from like Toronto or Vancouver. But like you said, it's perspective. That's
Yeah,
cheap.
because
Yeah,
they're trying to buy something for less than 250 a door.
exactly,
And
exactly.
in Winnipeg, I think it's like the last one that rolled was like, I think he would take 3 and it was like 21 units. So what is that?
Be 120.
Yeah, and it was relatively in good shape. Like it wasn't that it needed, 157 a door.
Is
So
that
you can
that?
buy them.
That's what that was.
Yeah, so we're you can buy them for about broken from like 75 to 90 a door, and then usually they'll like refi at like 150 or 170 a door. So it's like pretty standard for a fixed thing or a relatively fixed thing with like a parking lot. But then you have a Winnipegger go, I want it for 2 million. It's just like,
Yeah,
buddy, if
you'd
you don't
have
buy
to.
it, um, someone from Toronto will, because they just refied their house for 1 million and they don't have
Exactly.
any problem coming in here buying 21 units for 50% financing. The bank's gonna be like, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
They'll probably ask for less. So the big thing about multi is always the team that goes into it.
That's
So one of the things you mentioned was one of the biggest challenges can be finding these people. Um, have you been able to overcome that, or is it still a challenge kicking around to build that successful team?
we have a really good team right now. And actually when I wrote that, we were looking for like a part-time handyman was actually what I was talking about there.
Mm-hmm.
And to come on payroll. And it it's hard. It's tough to find the right person. We went through I don't know how many bookkeepers before we found the bookkeeper that was a good fit.
Yeah,
Uh
you can cycle through those every like 6 weeks if you don't get the right fit.
yeah,
And
and
then
same
try
thing
to
we want.
change everything. They go and resort all the file. They spend all this time like changing this file system, and then you're like, we're gonna have to let you go. And the next person comes in like, this is all wrong. Every bookkeeper thinks the last one was doing it all wrong. But
Yeah,
if you can find one, you can stick them in the position, and then they understand their position for a real estate bookkeeper. That's
yeah,
not the same as like you run a mechanic shop bookkeeper, real estate investment bookkeepers are not the same. So when you're looking out there, people listening along, make sure they have some training or background in
yeah.
real estate bookkeeping, because it's different. The
That's
taxes are
huge.
different, how you keep the books, how you organize your properties, especially the filings every year and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So,
Yeah, especially with accounting, like if you have a bookkeeper, we have the bookkeeper in house and then the accountants we hire out.
mhm.
Um, and yeah. And then yeah, as far as teams go, like we have a building manager. He's been with us for 2.5 years and he's awesome. He basically takes care of everything. I don't have to go talk to tenants or do anything in the buildings. He coordinates all the maintenance, everything that goes with that. And then because I've always I used to manage all of our buildings and I
Mhm.
realized that there's essentially three aspects to property management. It's like tenant relations, bookkeeping, and then maintenance and repairs essentially. And those are
Yeah,
the
making
three
sure it's
key.
still making sure it's still worth
Yeah,
renting it,
exactly.
and making sure you collected the money. That's
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah. So if you can boil it down to those three things and find people for those three positions, like we're scalable till I don't know, we could probably deal with 200 units with just who we have right now.
And where
So
you at now?
we'll be 55 here in 8 days. We get another 8 unit. So
There you go.
yeah,
So is it mostly like eights and sixes and tens, or do you have like some larger ones in the mix?
we have a 16, a 15, and then two eights, and then the third eight coming up here.
Have you been is it like an inventory thing? Is that why you're not going after like 50s and 60s, or
I
is
would
it
like
just
to, and I am actively hunting them down, but it's just you have a lot more competition, it seems like actually, which is kind of odd. It used to be that 24 units would, you don't have the bigger players coming in on buildings
it's
that
like a
small.
three-story, right? A three-story
Exactly.
walk up max out
Yeah.
24 units.
Now you're seeing just popped up a 45 unit. There's 34 units just popped up downtown. And like the price
So
points, people know they can
what,
get
yeah, I was gonna say, like, what's holding you back from knocking one of those down?
all basically inventory. I'd be more than happy to take it down. We have the net worth to guarantee the loans. We always guarantee the loans. We don't put partners on any of the loans, which is another amazing thing about real estate is you can reuse your net worth essentially. which is kind of
Mhm.
crazy when you think about it. And it
Because
has
the
to,
asset's now carrying itself, right? You can
exactly.
take it off your back because it's not a liability, it's an asset now.
Yeah, exactly. And then,
Okay, so so it's just like there's not enough of them for you to do it, or when you look at it, you're like, not enough lift, not enough, like they're not coming in
well,
broken enough.
there haven't been enough pop or many pop up in the last year and a half, probably since I've been looking for something in the 50 unit range or 60 unit range, even. I could
What
probably,
sort of tactics have you found to be successful in finding these things?
well, networking is usually what works. Networking and just basically cold calling apartment blocks, finding for rent signs, and just that's
Mm,
another thing that changes with families. You don't have a lot of time to go like basically door knocking. I used to do a lot of it and just
hmm.
driving for dollars, driving around looking for rent signs.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a lot. It's tougher in Canada. We have to like find them. In the
you have to
States,
actually
you just
work. Yeah.
search them up. Oh, there's the owner's name. I'll just give them a call.
Yeah, exactly. So
Not in Canada.
yeah, so that's the problem. So basically relying on like my network and the MLS recently. I'm gonna get away from that and go back to the old ways here. And yeah, anytime big ones pop up, like there was a 220 unit I think pop up downtown. Uh it went crazy high. There was one on McKercher. I forget how many units, 170 I think. And like I,
Perspective.
I would probably try.
Perspective, Fraser. It's all perspective.
Yeah,
Crazy
exactly.
high for who? Crazy
Yeah,
high for Toronto or crazy high for Saskatoon?
That's exactly the mindset. And it's hard to get out of those mindsets. Like I just got caught in it. But
Well, what really helped me is, and this might help you, and if you care to listen, go to your MLS data for your market and just go as far back as it goes and look at what a house was worth in 1978.
that's a good
And
idea.
that'll give you some perspective because you'd be like, you mean you could buy a house for 5 grand? And then you look at the same house today and you look at the MLS and it's like 175. And you're like, okay, so if I buy this overpriced apartment block 20 years from now, people won't be laughing about it. They'll be pissed they didn't buy it today.
Yeah.
There's this guy, he says, what's the best time to buy? And he's like, well, that's actually the wrong question. It's when's the best time to own? And he says,
Yeah.
always. So,
Yeah.
the financing though is always tricky because how do you how do you present that to your investors when you say, look, we're buying over the mark?
Yeah.
You
Or
got to
even
change their perspective now too.
yeah. And even if you buy in cash, eventually you put debt on it and it's going to meet that 1.25 DCR or debt coverage
Hmm.
ratio, right?
Hmm.
Or depending on your lender, it'll change. But then yeah, you're putting a lot more down, keeping a lot more money in the deal. And what a lot of new people don't realize, and this is just like a general comment, I guess.
Misconception, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's the word I was looking for. Is people say even on single family homes, well, oh, it doesn't cash flow, but if I put this much more down, it'll cash flow. But what a lot of people don't realize, and I actually had to draw this out for somebody the other day, was like basically the more money you put into the deal, the lower your
Hmm.
return on investment is. Right.
Yeah,
So,
it's cash on cash, not
exactly.
how much cash flow can it make? Well, if you're into it for $0 and it makes you $0, you're actually winning.
Yeah,
But when you look at it and you say, well, I'm not making any cash flow. Yes, you're not putting money in, but you own it and the market's paying down. It's worth something.
exactly. Your
But
clients
people
are kind
get,
of just paying down the
yeah, they
market.
get fixated. They get fixated on like, I need to make $200 a door. And cool. I mean, if that's your business model,
Yeah,
but just putting down parking more money isn't an answer. Maybe negotiate, buy it better, and then you don't have to park
exactly.
so much. But I mean, the cash out refinance where you come out with $0 or make money,
Yeah,
kind of walked off the table in the last couple of years. Like you're
yeah,
not
for sure.
really getting all of your money back, and if you do, um, you probably had to go a little farther, quartz countertops, this, that, and the other to really
Yeah,
press the top number. And then at that point, you're like, well, why isn't it cash flow? And it's like, okay, well, you got max refi. It's like the nicest house
well,
in the
yeah,
area. So
that's
great, you got all your money out, but now it's cash flow negative. So there's a balance. How far do you go? I think the real key to cash out refinance, from what I've been seeing people doing, is like go go like 20 or 30% of the way there and just be realistic instead of trying to chase the max ARV because that's just going to kill your
that
cash flow. And these tenants, you're going to be back changing that countertop in two
exactly.
years anyway. So like chop block, quartz, Although I
easy.
did hear on a podcast the other day that hard surfaces over time actually do save you money because they're more resilient than on tenant turnover.
That's
So,
fair.
for what a chop block countertop is worth, and then the quartz, even a low grade thing might be able to like outlast two tenants instead of one. So,
Yeah.
um,
And
I
then
guess go
just
ahead.
just one caveat on buying high and like the whole perspective thing is what was it? It was I think 2012, 2013. There was a lot of multifamily apartment owners going bankrupt. Like
Mm-hmm.
Block One was one of them. There was quite a few others I could probably list off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically due to over leveraging. So
Yeah.
it's you
Well,
know,
that's how Wind Park Dorchester got started in Winnipeg. They were doing the property management on a bunch of foreclosed units because they're like, oh, well, the bank owns them now. The bank took the apartment blocks back. And they said, hey, we'll give you a 0% loan if you just take these things off of our hands. And then
wow.
suddenly they had a portfolio. All the buildings they were managed were then now like great terms because the bank is like, we don't know how to run apartment blocks.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
management company was just like, yeah, we do. And then they got great terms.
What an
On a,
opportunity.
yeah,
That's good
look
though.
up the story of Wind Park Dorchester, and that's how they did it in the 90s. So when you look at that, how do you envision giving back to the world through your real estate? What impact do you hope to have on your community?
I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. I need to start small, It's people always wait until you can give a big chunk of something or a big chunk of your time or a big chunk of money before they do it. And what I'm really starting to learn is that start small, donate that $10 here and
Mm-hmm.
$20 there. So I've started doing that and like I don't know where it's gonna happen that we give back. It is something that we want to do. Like my wife, she's got a soft spot for homelessness. So, and it's interesting that we're in the housing industry. So I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
there's a way to make something happen there, or and just like give back to the community via mentoring where possible. And yeah, that
Well,
just boils down
don't
to
forget that you're doing community service when you run apartment blocks because it's
yeah.
the government's not suited really to own housing or manage it. They're not close enough to the people. So, if you do a good job of just having great apartments for rent in Saskatoon, you'll be definitely doing more than your part. So, anyone who's a landlord, property manager, it's not for me. I salute you.
Yeah.
For me. All right. So let's say someone wants to find out more about what you do. They want to, be part of your next deal. What should they do? How do they find you?
You can go to my Instagram. It's on the bottom there, Fraser.Nybo, Facebook, or you can go on our website. And yeah, lots of ways to get a hold of us.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by, man.
I appreciate you having me. This is fun. All
No problem. Until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
right, thanks for listening, everybody.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.